I'm now going to talk about ESL. The ESL Faceit Group, owned by Savvy Gaming, owned by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. I'm going to combine a couple of stories into one. Let's start with this. So I'm working on an article at the moment for my Substack talking about the layoffs about that hit ESL. For those that have been following it, there's been this correction in the market, which is there was a lot of pandemic overhiring and a lot of pandemic mergers and purchases, and obviously with the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, just a lot of acquisition purchase just flat out. And so we've gone from like 2020 in games development and esports right the way through to where we are kind of now. And I've said this, it was sort of ignored and overlooked. But while everybody else was really feeling pain and suffering during the pandemic and small businesses closed down and all this other stuff, games were fine. Games were doing really good, actually. Esports was largely fine. A lot of people used the pandemic as excuses to make pay cuts and other stuff, but the product was fine. It just pivot, it's not like sports. You just go online and that's that. Problem solved. We used to be online anyway. We know how to do this. This was our bread and butter before the in-person shit. And so that's what they did. Anyway, after a few years of that kind of unsustainable growth and job overlap and the market and the economy kind of plateauing, obviously there's been a ton of fucking layoffs. Loads of people have got and they've gone. And as I've talked about in other content, including the video, no, I'm not coming to your pity party, right? I'm not doing it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think there are a lot of underqualified grifters, a lot of people in really low-level entry jobs that were hired based on nepotism and cronyism, and a lot of incompetent people and bad people, and they got fired. So it didn't bother me all that much. And so anyway, I knew ESL were going to go. They were going to make their firings. I mean, think about it. They fucking bought all these companies that all ostensibly do the same thing, just in different territories. Why the fuck do I need to keep all the staff? And so they did. They announced that they were cutting 15% of their workforce worldwide. And it sort of hit people as a bit of a like, ooh, I thought they had unlimited money, said the plebs. Unlimited money or not, you still don't employ two people to do the same job, and you don't keep people on who are surplus to requirements if you're a healthy, functioning business. So, I got sent a bunch of stuff, because that's how that goes. If people are disgruntled on the way out, they hit Richard up. And, other people who just like me hit me up and say, this is going on, and have you seen this, and have you seen that? So I got a ton of stuff around it. I'm putting it all together right now. But one of the things I did publish immediately, I got sent their town hall, which was, right, for those who don't know, it's this American thing now. Town hall's got to be an American invention because, it never used to be called that. It was just a meeting in Europe, but Americans go to Americans, so what are you going to do? And ultimately, after they did the layoffs, what they did is they said, you can all connect in and listen to the two CEOs, because bizarrely, even though they made layoffs of people who had overlapping jobs, they have two CEOs. Who they call themselves co-CEOs. By the way, you offer me that title, stick it up your ass. I'm either CEO or I fucking ain't, but whatever. The survivors had to sit there and listen to Torbal and Nicolo Maisto basically say about why firing all of their mates was completely necessary, right? So, because it's just part of like corporate life now. Anyway, I got the town hall and I published it, right? And it's just 17 minutes of absolute piss, just pissing in your eyes. And there was some stuff in it that was confirmed that sort of hadn't been public knowledge, and a really funny bit where a totally fake question was asked. The esports advocate collated all of this stuff and put it into digestible bite-sized chunks of what's important. I'm not going to play you a 17-minute clip of corporate bullshit. Here are the takeaways from the recent ESL Faceit group town hall. So it goes here. The most interesting thing we learned is that Vindex has been shut down as all of its assets, including Esports Engine, have now been fully integrated into the Esports Faceit Group ecosystem. EFG acquired Vindex and its subsidiary Esports Engine on March 1st, 2023. Vindex had been working on an analytics product, but the more valuable part of the company was Esports Engine, which was founded by former Activision Blizzard executives that were hired by the publisher after it acquired MLG, Major League Gaming, another company they founded. While it is unclear what happened to that analytics product, the plan was always to fully integrate the acquisition into the ESL ecosystem. So, I want you to remember kind of just a little bit of your history. The Esports Engine were killing it. They were the company that were made by like Sundance and Adam Apsella, the MLG guys. So let this be a lesson to you that sometimes selling your company, right, isn't always a great idea, even if you do get a fuck ton of money. In fact, actually, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody that built a company up, sold it for loads of money, really life-changing money, and then enjoyed having the money over the company. I think about Hector with Optic, etc., etc. The list goes on. And obviously, listen, I know Sundance very well, consider Sundance a personal friend, consider Adam a friend. Got weird with us in the pandemic years. I'd like to fix that now that I'm feeling a bit more, how should we say, again, zen. But listen, what I will say about both of them is they're absolute G's in everything they've done and their contributions to the space. And MLG was foundational and instrumental and of huge importance to esports and esports history. And they got bought by Activision Blizzard, and then even though they were promised a bunch of stuff on the way in, Activision Blizzard were like, oh no, you'll still be a production company, and we're totally going to let you produce events for other people's games. Remember, they did that great major in 2016 in CS, and they wanted to do another one, and I was like, boys, that's fucking pie in the sky. Of course, they're never going to let you promote and produce a sick tournament for a rival product, like. But anyway, I mean, they could have also produced a bunch of sick and amazing stuff at Activision Blizzard. Spoiler, Activision Blizzard don't want to make sick and amazing stuff. Not in the Bobby Kotick, perhaps soon to buy TikTok, in some mad, nightmarish, dystopian future era. That's not how it works. Activision Blizzard don't even make fucking good games anymore. They don't want to. They want to make shit, hollowed out, gacha fucking game trash so they can fucking sell you a variety of fucking in-game currencies to buy garbage. That's it. That's their era. Right? So, obviously, they didn't do anything with MLG. And MLG sat there and they were like, fuck, it'd be great to make cool stuff. And I know this really deeply affected Adam, more than Sundance, because Sundance is just the type of motherfucker who goes, listen, we either do cool shit or we don't, but if we don't, I'm off skiing. He's just always on the slopes, that guy. He don't give a fuck. So that's fair, two different people. But I know Adam was deeply affected by being sidelined because he legitimately likes to make cool shit. That's who he is. He's been doing it all his life, and he's smart, and he knows what he's doing, and he's a great guy, and he's a good guy to work for. Anyway, Activision Blizzard, MLG goes. They leave. They get to be making Esports Engine and Vindex, and they're all super happy. It's all the boys back together again. Sundance, Sepso, Apicella, it's like, let's do it. And Esports Engine, unbeknownst to a lot of people, they were doing white label stuff. They even produced Call of Duty League events. I went to one when I was in New York. I had a fucking psychotic meltdown because something horrible happened to me, and it was really embarrassing, and everyone was so nice about it. Nobody said anything publicly. So listen, to all my fucking Call of Duty fam, thanks for that. I needed that. I needed someone to show me grace. I was hurting in a bad place. Esports Engine also been producing Halo and all this other stuff. They were making great fucking tournaments, and they were doing good work, and they were working with good people and helping create people's careers and giving them opportunities. And if anything, it looked like they were going to expand. But you see, because they'd become effectively the best de facto white labeling production company in NA, the Death Star had to have it. ESL said, turn the laser on Alderaan, aka Esports Engine, and fire up the fucking Quattro. And the problem was, I know for a fact that this must have been an issue because, look, Adam left shortly after. I'll give him his due. I was ready to light him up on fucking social media, friend or not, right? He was one of these dudes who, Trump is a dipshit. I would like to fight Tucker Carlson. All this fucking politics garbage on my timeline. And you go, oh, God. Well, you can never get in bed with the Saudis, because I'll tell you, you know what's like a Republican on fucking bigot steroids? It's the Saudis. So, make a choice about where you're standing in this battle. And I was all ready, but he left. He quit. He took the money, because obviously that comes with it, and he fucking bounced. And then he has been very pissy and upset about it ever since. And, he posting his workout videos and saying, I want to get back into it, and I hope somebody hires him, and I hope it's a good company who don't fuck him over, because he's good people, TDS notwithstanding. Anyway, obviously ESL bought that company with the view to hollowing it out. The writing was on the wall the moment they got it. And so, yes, Vindex was always going to die. This wasn't a surprise to me, but you can see just from the quote, this was Torble saying, all of this only works if we come together as one EFG. You'll hear more about the work to unite with a shared culture, and one that we could all be proud of in the coming town halls. It's already been underway, and a key piece of today's update is the formal completion of the Vindex and Esports integration into EFG with one unified team that I described. And when they say integration, they mean we fired a bunch of people and we never use those brands ever again, and we just do the shit in the territory we essentially took over by not only buying the workers that we wanted to hire who worked for a rival, but also simultaneously killing that rival. It's very cutthroat, hostile takeover shit. And they go on again and say we have one unified approach to publisher and industry stakeholders, and as mentioned, have retained the Esports Engine brand and have already sunsetted Vindex. So the Esports Engine brand is still there, but it's just EFG now, so my bad. They are keeping that brand to essentially say it's the same thing to people they work with in NA, when of course it won't be the same thing, because it won't be the same people. It'll be some of the same people and a bunch of people from ESL who, listen, I don't know how you feel about ESL production, but the idea of everything globally, because they also bought ESVN in China, right? The idea of everything global becoming like a homogenous ESL product with the Overwatch Championship Series and all sorts of stuff. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I like the idea of all esports being this safe, boring, min-maxing ESL production, actually. Anyway, they also say they've closed down the DreamHack Sports Games brand, which was launched in 2019, and I didn't even know that was a thing. Just to be clear, it's specifically DreamHack Sports Games. I didn't know it existed, and I work in this industry, so I don't know. What did it do? But it's dead now. Rip. I think it was probably a subsection of DreamHack that actually produced fucking iRacing and FIFA or something. Whatever. Who cares? But that was confirmed. They're getting rid of it. So just to be clear, it's not that DreamHack is dead. They're keeping DreamHack, obviously, which has become more like their secondary, tertiary tier of LAN events with, ESL 1 and IEM being the prestigious ones, and ESEA they don't really seem to do a lot with either. They bought that too. ESEA is more like just a amateur league for Americans and match fixers now. Anyway, then they also added that the company isn't profitable at this moment in time, which, why would that have suddenly changed? I don't know if you've ever looked at ESL's finances, but there was a story that never got out a few years ago. They nearly sold up to a big Singaporean tech company. And that deal, I think it got to the fucking, the stage where you exchange financial documents and talk about your accounts in very explicit detail, not just what's available from filings and stuff. But anyway, it never got closed. But ESL were trying to sell for a long time before the Saudis came. They were really struggling. There was a lot of people in the industry at one point genuinely thought we could see ESL die or have to make so many cutbacks and downsize to such a degree it was functionally unrecognizable. A lot of people really thought that could be a future, you know. Old Richie going to events, young Richie as it happened, old Richie is young Richie. I used to go to the events and people would just pull me into rooms. Hey, you want to have a chat? You want to get a beer or whatever? You go, yeah, okay. And they would be like, listen, have you seen this? And look at this. And, you know, the type of meetings that I have at events is people even bring like fucking homework, you know, they bring documents and they go, look, man, did you see the latest ESL filing? You go, yeah, that looks pretty bad. How many millions is that in the hole? and you know, they were doing that year upon year. So ESL were never a profitable business. How could they be? And just by virtue of being bought by Saudi Arabian sugar daddies, why the fuck would that change? I mean, this is, again, the conceptualization around how business works in esports, because our fucking community is trash and our fans are so uneducated about how the sausage gets made. And anyone who tries to say, yo, Soylent Green, Soylent Esports is people, right? Anyone that tries to say that, they just fucking ignore you and say you're a grumpy old man or a cunt or a boomer or, you know, a doomer or you're gatekeeping or, you know, pick any of these stupid fucking words. The problem is they thought, oh, well, they've been bought by Saudi, so that's that. They just turn a profit now. Well, no. They still have to spend the money. And obviously this is the first time we've seen them sort of start to sculpt the company as it's going to be moving forward. And so obviously one of the things they said is the decision, this was when Nicolo started talking, and he said the decision to part ways with our colleagues today was not an easy one amongst those impacted, and were friends that we've been building the company with for over a decade now. Now, by the way, I saw some of the layoffs. I saw some of the names. Genuinely surprising, actually, some of the names. There were people who've been at the company a long, long time. Old school ESL workers. Back in the day, before it was even really a global company. I'm talking about when it was just based in Germany. And its bread and butter was doing, like, the German Counter-Strike Source Pro League. That was, like, really big for them. So, you know, I was surprised at some of the people they let go, but I also think, you know, you work at a company a long time, you get comfortable. You know, you probably aren't really doing all that much, you know. It's great, I work flexi time. You know, like we're seeing that in Birmingham, by the way. A little bit of news. It's unrelated to esports, but Birmingham City Council, I don't know if you see it, it's officially bankrupt. I've never seen this happen before in my life. An actual branch of local government, the council, has gone bankrupt. What? And so, just to put it into sharp context about how they're getting out of this bankruptcy. So first of all, they were given emergency loans by the government, so the taxpayer bailed them out again, because I guess much like banks, councils are too big to fail. Do you want to know one of the reasons they're bankrupt? They're bankrupt because they systemically underpaid female workers in jobs such as dinner ladies and grave diggers and other like administrative roles across local governance. They did that for decades without ever thinking, well, this will totally come back and bite us in the arse. It was the literal mythological pay gap brought to life. They were literally arbitrarily deducting a set percentage from female salaries. This is absolutely true, by the way. And in the end, they got hit with one of the biggest ever employment class actions in the world, and they had to ring up all of the people and offer or write to them in letters and say, like, listen, will you accept this settlement as back pay? And we're talking like some of these people had been underpaid for 30 years of loyal service. So they were being offered hundreds of thousands of pounds in one instance. And there were hundreds and thousands of female employees affected like this. It cost them millions, tens, hundreds of millions. It totally fucked them. And they never bounced back from that. And so, anyway, what they started doing to try and arrest it was like, well, what if we just start cutting services? So get this. In Birmingham, how they've decided to bail out the council, which is, it was a Labour-run council. I'm not saying the Conservatives would have done any better, not the austerity kings, but I'm just saying this is how look. We got the same two-party bullshit going over in the UK, where it's just a bunch of useless cunts across the board. They said what we're going to do is we're going to cut almost every service to the bone that we deem non-essential. Now, by the way, non-essential services, you'd be surprised by some of them because, yes, the arts get impacted and you go, oh, boo-hoo, no local theatre. Although, I would argue it has a right to exist. But also, mental health services and, provisions made for disabled people. Them ramps don't build themselves, right? That's all gone. Fuck you. That's non-essential. And that's so all them services have been cut to the bone. Not to mention, you want your garbage picked up once a week? Don't know about that. What we'll do is we'll take away that one bin, but we can't take that bin. In fact, we'll just have to alternate. So sorry, there will be a period where you're getting 2 weeks of pile up. And by the way, do you know what else we're going to do for not taking away your garbage, not helping you get up a ramp if you're not able to walk, not having your local theatre, not providing counselling groups and other things for mental health and this whole plethora of other services? We're going to charge you 21% more. 21% increase for about 50% fewer services. Sounds good to me, Birmingham. Here's what I want to happen. Can't we let this council be treated like another business that made bad decisions? And I'll just chance it. I'll take my own garbage to the fucking dump. I'll be all right, actually, I think. I think I'll be okay. I don't care if Birmingham goes full Mad Max for a few years. Why are you charging me 21% more? For less, 50% less. Like, fuck this. So anyway, just to let you know, that's just a thing that happened in Britain. So there it is. Anyway, completely unrelated to esports, but it's boiled my piss, guys. It really has. It's boiled my piss because you get the letter. Hello, council letter. Guess it's time for the council tax. Is it? Is that what you want? Oh, it's gone up, has it? By 21%, and I get fuck all now. Oh, okay, well, that seems reasonable. It's a fucking mafia shakedown, is it? Okay. Anyway, unrelated, back to ESL. The decision to part ways with our colleagues today was not an easy one. We've been building the company with them for over a decade now. That said, this was needed for the company to be best positioned to navigate the dynamic environment that Craig talked about a few minutes ago. But don't think of today simply as downsizing. This is the best line. Don't think of today simply as downsizing. Think of today as part of a transformation that we started a year and a half ago, and that will ultimately enable us to achieve our goals in a sustainable way. So, guys, just to everyone who got fired, don't think about it that you got shit canned, right? It's a transformation. All the people who are working here, don't think of it as downsizing, even though we are objectively downsizing. Think about it as a transformation. Now, when I saw that, Buffalo Bill, it immediately sprung to mind. Not all transformations are a good one, and they can at sometimes come at a human cost, can't they? Much like this. So, by the way, that movie's aged terribly now and is considered bigoted, so I'm cancelled for even mentioning it. Oh yeah, worlds do collide, Jace. ESL 1 having the Dota Major in Birmingham. It's like, wow. And I'll bring it up in a second. We'll just do an ESL special for the end of the stream. But they're getting a council grant. Fuck me, I guess. Right? Because Richie tells you no lies. Think about what I've just said about Birmingham. Thanks, Jace. You've really tied the stream together. This would have been a really garbage stream if you hadn't reminded me about that. Here it is. So think about everything I've just said about Birmingham, where we're at, and this is on Esports Insider. ESL 1 Birmingham receives funding from the WMCA and UK government, right? And the WMCA is the West Midlands Combined Authority because it's part of a larger initiative in which the Commonwealth Games legacy funding has been given to to 9 cultural and sporting events. The new funding aims to bring more people to the West Midlands and boost the local economy. So don't worry, right? We can't afford to take away your fucking bins or build you an accessibility ramp, but we brought Dota to the city. So yeah, I'm good actually. Those entitled fucking nerds. It's the last thing I need. If you've ever gone down Birmingham, by the way, there's a part of Birmingham right in the city centre where on a typical day, it's down near the big HSBC. If you go down that street and you walk towards the Bull Ring, you will see lots of people on their soapbox. They literally have like a speaker's corner down there. And you will just see like mad preachers and just all sorts, like, or, you know, people just with bullhorns talking about stuff. Anyway, I'm convinced that when they do the fucking ESL Dota 2 major, there's going to be some fucking loser in a shitty brewmaster cosplay stood on a fucking milk crate with a megaphone. Gaben! Give Patch! The meta is stale in Dota 2 right now! They don't care! Like, I'm telling you, if you live around here, you know. Right? Oh, shit. Back when I used to fucking go out, when I was younger and I used to go out drinking, man, you would have a few afternoon beers. You know, missus would be at work or whatever. You'd have a few fucking afternoon beers. You just go down and check out the fucking crazies, mate. Used to be insane. And the funny thing is, it's interspliced with, like, people, like, selling, like, balloons. Balloons or hot dogs or just whatever shit. You know, those fake buskers. Oh, he's really good on a violin. But he only seems to be able to play along to that tape deck. It's really weird. Those type of cunts. So, it's like, it's just, you just walk down that street and it is just like in your face, like insanity. Anyway, so Birmingham Council, could we redirect the Commonwealth Games funding to like essential services? Now, Dota 2 will do. So my money somewhere along the line is actually funding a Dota tournament. I might apply for press credentials and just sit in the crowd. Boo! Boo! Everyone just booing me. It'd be brilliant. It's like being Larry David for a day. Anyway, what the fuck? So, right. We move on to the next part of the ESL things that are going on. And this kind of came out of left field for me. This is Leetify's blog, and it kind of makes me wonder if ESL, I think we might have figured out potentially what that analytics product could have been, or maybe plans they have to make their business more sustainable, you know, and continue that transformation. There was this news about Leetify. Now, remember, obviously, the ESL Faceit group, you can tell by the name, they own Faceit. And how it used to work is that Leetify used to be able to get their demos via an API. I'm probably explaining it like a fucking boomer. And obviously, you could get your Leetify stats off your Faceit games from the demo files. And that was just something that they've been doing. Well, anyway, Faceit, and these are just the cliffs up front, because it's quite a long story. Listen, Leetify is insufferable. Or rather, Leetify is a good product, but the people who use it are insufferable, I should say. I hate Leetify people using Leetify to justify whatever fucked up takes they have. And, like, I have read some grade A bullshit on the subreddit where Reddit users are going things like, the fun of the game is getting my demos afterwards and downloading them and watching it back and then looking at the data and seeing where I can... That's the fucking fun, is it? Fucking hell, right? That's the fun part of the game. Guys, people unironically say this all the motherfucking time. It is ridiculous. But that's where it is, like, and people will be like, Leetify? Got your Leetify? Show me your Leetify then. You got your Leetify? Yeah, let's have a look at your Leetify. And it's like, the user base has, like, some absolute fucking insufferable plebs in it, right? But anyway, it's a good product, and the people who make it are good people. And, you know, I've talked to some of the guys at Leetify on and off, and they're very gracious with their time. And, you know, I like Leetify. I think Leetify, if you're that type of person, which Matt Enjoyer not fan, is just called stat cells. I think we'll go with that. If you are a stat cell, Leetify's been great, and they've had a really good synergistic understanding for a while, and now that seems to have changed. And so here's the TLDR. Faceit surprised us by changing to a paid model for downloading their demos, and the price that they've estimated would be 270,000 euros a year, would double Leetify's infrastructure costs. Since we can't pay this amount, new Faceit matches won't be available on Leetify for now. We've been hard at work looking for solutions to this problem, including many attempts to communicate with Faceit, but crucial details about these changes still haven't been shared with us, which is making it tough to decide on a proper solution. Faceit has been unwilling to provide a transition period for us to properly solve this new challenge. Faceit gave us days to react to this major change, which made it all but certain that our shared users would experience an outage. We expect 3 to 6 months of notice for a major change to a partnership that's been active for years. We understand that Faceit is cutting costs as a company, and we'd be happy to collaborate on a solution that helps them accomplish this. Faceit has told us they don't believe this change is impacting their users because nobody has complained. Please let Faceit know if this change negatively impacts you. So it seems to me strange that essentially they're framing this as a cost-cutting exercise that sort of isn't. That isn't what it is. It's not a cost-cutting exercise. It's more like a profit-maximizing exercise. And there's some sort of precedent for this already. I don't know if you noticed, but Reddit went through a similar thing, right? Do you remember when all them subreddits went dark and they said, listen, Reddit are charging all this money for the API, and it's making essential services and tools not work with the website anymore because no one can afford because their model is so unreasonable. So we're closing this subreddit. By the way, the CSGO subreddit did that over that, and zero protests about Saudi Arabia. So interesting. So that didn't do anything because ultimately what moderators still have never got in their head is you are volunteer staff. You are the only reason the site can function, and yet you every time you try and wield power, you are treated like the dog shit you are, and the penny never drops because you realize you would have to walk away from the only part of the universe where you hold any power or influence because you're a basement-dwelling dirtbag, right? So Reddit managed to just sort of trundle along and get away with it, but a lot of the fucking interfaces that used to use the API no longer worked. And actually, this was very beneficial to Reddit in some areas because a lot of the things that use the API to see whether someone's deleted a thread or what the moderators are deleting, they don't work anymore. So you can't see what an astroturfed shithole Reddit is or how it has a real problem with child protection on that website. So anyway, people don't like other people making cool shit with their API and not charging for it now. It's very kind of vogue. And so they were already paying for it, I believe, but it might have been a nominal fee. But this is obviously significant and would essentially crush Leetify as a business. Now, they outline why they feel this is a bad change. And they point out here that by not giving them notice, we couldn't roll out an explanation and a date of when the services were going to end to their consumers. So the knock-on effect of obviously having a few days' notice isn't great. But they go here, look, another big issue was after over 2 weeks of direct communication, we are still missing many crucial details from Faceit, including a draft for the commercial agreement they want us to sign. It's impossible to make real progress on solutions when we don't even have basic guidelines about how pricing will be calculated. We fear that it will be very difficult for us to say yes to the agreement when we do eventually see it, and here's why. Faceit already asked us to sign restrictive NDAs, which would limit our ability to communicate about this issue with our users. It's the old classic, let's aggressively use an NDA to stop people telling the truth. These are perfectly normal, say the lawyers. Perfectly shit, tells you the journalist. If a third party is footing the bill, Face It has much less incentive to work to lower the cost of providing demos. It's unclear how they plan to track and report the number of demos they are charging us for, and therefore how to guarantee transparency in this process. The data Face It reported for our initial price estimate does not align with Leetify's own data on how many Face It demos we actually used, and Face It has been unresponsive to our feedback on this issue and dismissive about the impact of this change on their users. Face It told us that these fees are designed to cover their own costs, not to generate profit. We understand that Face It is looking at every opportunity to cut costs right now, but we think Face It is being short-sighted and only seeing this as a cost and not acknowledging the value created for their users. Every download request is on behalf of someone actively using both Leetify and Face It. We don't download demos for people who are inactive on Leetify, so we aren't racking up unnecessary costs. Face It has told us that they think Leetify is beneficial to them since our match pages help Face It players enjoy their matches more, but Face It's recent actions seem to contradict this stance. I mean, as we'll get to, obviously there's a play here. I don't know why when they were like, well, I do know. But, you know, for example, could have maybe acquired Leetify when they were buying everything else. Haven't done that. And now you've got this service that a lot of people who are serious CS players, I would say, people who want to rank up in Premier, people who want that, you know, fewer cheater experience and don't mind downloading kernel level anti-cheat for it, they go to Face It. Maybe aspiring pros, you know, people like this. And obviously you are going to track your stats and you are going to want some feedback that's beyond what you would get from just participating in Premier matches or Face It games. So Leetify have put forward some options where they say there would be an at-cost paid plan, which means they would have to charge their users. And they say, we strongly dislike this solution and don't like the thought of our users having to pay for basic functionality. But this seems right now the only solution that would retain automatic match imports for within Face It's current proposal. Option 2 would be to cut the Face It integration from Leetify. And say Face It simply isn't the same company that they were years ago when we introduced this integration. We understand they have a new set of objectives, and right now one of those is cutting costs, but a lot of the areas they are looking to cut costs for are very concerning for us, and we fear that the direction they are headed in may mean we are continuously solving roadblocks that could threaten our integration with them. We had some serious discussions about whether it's still smart to spend a lot of time, money, and effort on an integration that may be diverging from Leetify's direction as a company. We want to spend our time innovating and providing creative new ways to enjoy your matches, not limping along continuously patching issues that arise out of our control. And the other worse option would be manual uploads. So Leetify does have a manual upload feature. So if you were really curious to get your demos during the outage, you can download your demo from the match room and then you upload it to Leetify. Manual uploads are a Leetify Pro feature, and we apologize that this isn't a solution for everybody. So that's basically the situation, because if you aren't aware, obviously you can upgrade Leetify Pro, but they do offer a very basic functionality just to use it for free, because obviously there's benefit for Leetify. Now, if Leetify were a super wealthy company, what I would do, if I had the money and the resources, I would start developing my own pugging platform, and I would use the goodwill Leetify have built up and the fact that the stat cells love the stats anyway to be like, listen, you can just do it all in one place. We've got a kernel level anti-cheat, we've got this, we've got that, you can come here. But unfortunately, all of that is money and crucially time, and clearly Leetify haven't started doing that because they had no reason to view Face It as a future competitor potentially, or someone that might cut them off. And obviously, this is part of the ESL Death Star that's going on. We're going to get to the motivations in a moment, because this is ESL changing their business, trimming the fat, running events, government money, PIF money. Now we're going to turn this shit into revenue streams, stuff we've given away for free historically, not anymore. We're not going to do it, and we'll get to the whys in a second. But anyway, they talk in the end note. They talk about the communications, And they say that in July, Faceit notified us they were considering changing to a paid API, and they would get the pricing info across to us in a few weeks. And we said that was extremely worrying and asked for pricing info as soon as they could possibly provide it. They walked back their stance, listened to our feedback, and explained that these API changes are designed to limit misuse. They explained that they value the partnership with Leetify and integration would be fine for us. They said they would keep us informed about pricing and added functionality to the API, and we followed up on this thread twice in October 2023 in January 2024 and received no additional info from Faceit. We want to make it clear this discussion was nowhere near an appropriate warning for actions they've taken this month. They didn't provide any timetable, pricing info, or any other indication that they were going to rate limit us. On the contrary, they both told us this was just an evaluation, and in calls with people at Faceit, we were told that we shouldn't be affected by any price changes on demo downloads. Our feedback seemed well received. We didn't get any pricing info within weeks, as promised, and didn't hear anything else about the change for 9 months, even though we checked in with them multiple times. So we assumed Faceit decided not to proceed with this change. Then we got rate limited this February. So this says to me as well that they haven't been talking to decision makers, right? One of the things that I've speculated about is there's going to be not just cuts at ESL, but they are going to be this more ruthless, we've got to make profit. Because, as I said, the Saudis, they're not stupid. They want it for many reasons. They want this company for many reasons. It's part of their 2030 vision. They want it to generate jobs. They want it to intersect with Qiddiya, all this other stuff. But ultimately, dead weight fat is going to get trimmed at some point. And if you're offering all these services for free, the question essentially, because of integration and partnership, the question is always going to be why? Why when we could charge? And generally in esports, companies as big as like ESL and Faceit that have their service, they have a foundational bedrock that generates money for them. They generally haven't historically been that ruthless. They have with rivals, but with additional ancillary services, it's fine. It's an attitude that Valve themselves have fostered, Take our API, make cool shit, we'll see how it breaks the fucking ecosystem like mad scientists staring at a Petri dish. And that's how you get skins gambling and all the terrible stuff that came out of that. This is a very corporate attitude that is different. It is different to the norm in esports. It is, you are using our shit, pay for it. And by the way, if you don't, we just cut you off. And we don't care about your users, even though there's overlap. Where it gets a little bit more insidious is ESL already own something like Leetify. It's called csstats.gg, and you can see track your CS2 stats in competitive and premier matchmaking. And it does all the things Leetify do. I'm told Leetify is objectively better. I don't know. I don't play the game. I don't use these systems. I have no interest in any of it as a player, as a consumer. But I have heard that this is inferior to Leetify. But when I hear about layoffs and a data product, and suddenly see them start raising the price. Oh, and it just so happens we have csstats.gg. Yeah, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if essentially this is coming and they're going to give it a big push and an update and a new lick of paint. Because it sort of makes sense. If you own a product like Leetify, I guess I don't want to partner with Leetify. I want to push my shit. And so what I would predict is, first of all, they're not going to budge on the pricing issue. I don't think Leetify are going to get their way. I don't think Leetify are going to be able to stump up the money either. And so that's problem number one. And then problem number two is I would imagine that they are then going to give this a big push. And by the way, they'll probably do what companies always do. They need to migrate you off Leetify. So it'll be free and Pro will be super cheap. And everybody will reluctantly migrate because they want their Face It games or their ESEA games or whatever it is. So you go in, you sign up, and then obviously at some point it's going to come with a low subscription cost. And then ESL have essentially generated the revenue stream that they weren't generating by having Leetify walk away because they can't afford to pay the money. So it's going to be something like that, in my opinion. I think we have to get used to the idea that ESL are going to go in a bit more of a corporate direction, that they are going to be not an esports company anymore, but essentially a tech business. And they are going to cut things that don't work and fire people that don't offer maximum value. And they are going to be ruthless with companies they've had partnerships with in the past. That's the brave new world. This was another problem with having one company come in and buy so much, because what happens territorially when they decide, oh, we've always had a good working relationship because you provide a service that we don't. Well, we're going to provide that service now. So who's got the muscle? And we've seen this with, like the way they've gone out to. They didn't want to buy Blast. I thought they would. I've been told behind the scenes they don't deem Blast worth buying because they think Blast will ultimately be financially derailed. Been a number of issues with Blast where they've took government loans. Some people say they're pretty much owned by the Danish government now because of the shares that they've given up to various government programs, and they've hired people who work at that company to come and work at ESL. All the people who were deemed worth getting, they went out and headhunted them, and they even hired specific HR firms to go and do this. So obviously this is where we're at, and this is why it's a problem, because the stat cells, they all love Leetify, right? They love Leetify, and nope. You're not going to be able to have it and Face It. But don't worry, we've got this. We've got Leetify at home. CSstats.gg. And so it seems to me very strange that they're doing this now. And I have to believe it's linked to all of the stuff we talked about with the cutbacks, that ultimately they do need to start seeing some returns on this shit somewhere along the line. Doesn't grow on trees. Interestingly enough, I'm going to watch with great interest to see who among the talent pool has an opinion on this and what that opinion might be. We'll wait and see. But I have a feeling that there's a lot of people, like say, this doesn't affect me personally, but I think it's bullshit because I like Leetify, and ultimately there really isn't a reason to do this, and there has to be a compromise in the middle that can be made. Also, give people notice of fundamental changes which break their business. If it was indeed a partnership, this wasn't a predatory API data scraper leeching off something you've built. This was somebody who integrated with your site specifically, communicated with you specifically, and offered a service that you didn't for your users that they enjoyed. There had to be some sort of, territory where you could meet in the middle. But I think ESL is going to be flexing a lot in 2024. Don't think there's going to be a lot of meat in the middle stuff, which is interesting because obviously PGL have announced they're going to be doing a lot of events this year. Obviously, I think they announced like 10 Dota events, which to start, get some CS in there, and we might have a good old-fashioned territorial war. Which would be interesting. It would give me something to talk about.